All right, welcome back to another episode of the Profit Minded Business Podcast. Today it's a little bit different. Corbin and I just thought it'd be a good idea to catch up with one another. And you probably know both of us if you've been listening to the show, but if not, Corbin, do you want to start off with an introduction of who you are and what you're doing now?
Yeah, so Corbin Cook, and we're in a company called SMB Strategy Consultants, which is part of Auxilium Associates. And what I do, as far as my core arena, is I help small business owners understand cash flow, deal with their profitability. I want to make sure that they understand their financials. So I bring that to them in the package of like a fractional CFO. And a lot of times what we find is that the business, because cash flow means everything, whether they can make payroll, whether they can pay for marketing, whether they can pay themselves, that they don't have a good handle on that, then their expertise as whatever they're doing is hard to really accelerate and hit their goals. So.
Okay. And how did you get started in that? You probably just didn't get out of high school, get out of college, and say, I want to help other small business owners become profitable. What was that process kind of like to figure out where you are now?
Well, so for me, helping people has always been a part of what I like to do. Like I like to listen to people, understand their problems, and problem solve. So actually, my degree is in counseling and psychology. Yeah, growing up, especially in high school, it really became apparent that I really enjoyed listening to people and I could understand big picture things. And when I would talk to friends, I could understand the puzzle pieces, then appreciate the different sides of those puzzle pieces. It's like when you're at an intersection and someone's trying to describe to you what they're looking at. They're the same intersection, but depending upon how they're facing, it's a completely different perspective.
Right.
And so we interact with the world with our own personal perspectives, and oftentimes we forget that there's probably a different, hundreds of different variations of that same point in history and moment in their life. And so having that person who understands the big picture was kind of what I started to see was my gift. Well, naturally thinking that counseling was the route, because here I was naturally counseling friends, and that was just a normal part of who I was. I started down the path and obviously got the degree in the training. And from there, I was also very altruistic. I just believed that things should just not be difficult. Things should be better.
Right.
And so I basically went into the world of counseling, but it was more of the nonprofit sector. So I worked with a company called Youth Villages. And working with the young kids within youth villages within a certain capacity taught me a lot about myself, that I'm more of a talk therapist. So working with 7 to 9-year-olds probably wasn't my strength.
How long ago was this? Just to give us all a background.
Well, I'm 40 now, and so we're talking more like 2004.
Okay, so that was about 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So I started working with young kids, and it was a sex offender campus. And so these young kids weren't sex offenders; they were sexually reactive. It's a big determinant difference. Like something happened, like someone caught them doing something highly scary and inappropriate, and so they were here to kind of get.
This was the kids that were being caught?
Yeah, so I'm kind of running around. But so at youth villages, they work with different children. They help families live successfully. And so where I got started was a campus in Memphis that was focused on helping kids that have been exposed to or done something that was very scary in a sexual way. It's just unnatural, like they shouldn't at that age. So something happened. Right. And so they're there, and so that was fascinating because you learn so much about yourself and about the kids and about that. But I learned that what they were actually looking for was what was called a behavioral modification type of a counselor, which means that you use the group to influence the other people to kind of fall in line, and then it's a behavior modification. So anyway, that was new to me because I'm a talk therapist. Like I enjoy having conversations, listening to perspectives, thinking about perspectives, and then helping someone come to a better understanding and then make different decisions.
Right.
You can't do that with a 7-year-old. You can't do that. So that led me into moving to the high school, kids, and I did really well there. And I started working, moved out of that campus specifically into working with foster care.
Oh wow! So that's part of the high school students that you're working with. They're all part of the foster care, or
No. So that was that specific campus. So I went from sexually reactive young boys to sex offender older boys that they weren't. There again,
they weren't adults, but they were still.
Yes, so this is like their chance to kind of like get right.
Right.
Anyway, so that was learned a lot. It was very educational, but it did move me into foster care, which was more my strength. Helping people who live successfully. So I was working with the families, I was working with the kid, and I was working with the school system. So again, it was all these different perspectives. To helping them understand how to find the right path for them, and how to deal with them. The child has to deal with all kinds of influences, emotionally, just to how they're going to behave, how that behavior causes a ripple effect and other consequences, and not having any sense of what those consequences look like 15 years down the road, and being that resource of strength for them to come to and talk to, and not feel like they don't have anywhere to go. So I became that was part of my role as a behavior specialist at the time. But I also learned how powerful the influence of someone's finances were. I mean, I go from, where I was at in college, never really having, obviously didn't have a family at that point, so I didn't really have a good grasp, on the impact of finances, from stress, how people treat one another, down to, obviously the evolution of where I am now, which is how it helps the business be successful or not.
Right.
So the origin of my, where I've gotten really comes back to helping families live successfully. And so learned really quickly that being in that environment wasn't the path to, it was very altruistic, but it wasn't my long-term path.
Right.
So my father, who was with Edward Jones, an investment company, so he's a financial advisor, had for a long time encouraged me to come into business with him. So after spending a good bit of time in that arena, I said, okay, maybe it's best for me to go ahead and move to the next line. Well, part of my thinking was that I'll be around people of wealth that will allow me to be a part of things like nonprofits, right? So it kind of led me into a mindset of, well, whether my counseling skills are useful here or not, what I'm saying? Like, I know that by doing right by this group not only will elevate me to where maybe financially I'll be able to give back, but it'll also allow me to be around people of that nature as well. Sticking to the altruistic part of me, right? Anyway, let me just tell you. So, being a financial advisor, your counseling skills don't translate as sales skills.
Right. I can imagine. So yeah, it's very personal and totally different regards.
Yeah.
One's going deep into like how your family makes ends meet versus how our family gets along together. Totally different areas. Even though both are very personal.
Yeah, but very, very different. You've got to ask the owner to close the sale versus just saying, "Oh, I really understand what you're going through."
Right.
Oh, yeah. But what I took was that, how critical it is for a family to have a good financial economy, and how important it is for, people to understand that, we only get what we call one exponential curve. And what that means is that, it takes a long time for money to hit a certain point where it begins to really just work hard for you. Right? And it doesn't matter. Everyone starts somewhere on that hockey stick curve.
Right.
And like Warren Buffett, well, he hit his curve at some point and it just went straight up. But he had to do things regularly to get to the point where that curve turned up.
Right.
Well, we're all the same way. We have one exponential curve in our lifetime. You can't start saving for retirement at 60 and have an impact that's meaningful.
Right.
At that point, you're just, so my point is that it became very clear that in order for families to live successfully, even in the foster care arena, how relative it was to find some sort of harmony in your finances. right?
Okay.
Just to live life and be happy on some level. It doesn't have to be wealthy. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have billions of dollars to be happy. But the point is, you have to find what it is that is your harmony.
Right. What's the life that you want to live, and what's it going to take to live that life? And I think the way that I look at money, which I think really helps out, is it's just like a resource like anything other. It's allows you to do something that you want to be able to do without it.
Right.
Just like if you didn't have a pen to write a paper, write a book, right? It's same type of asset that you need to make something happen. And
you needed to do X, Y, and Z.
Right. And a lot of people think, oh, I need something else to make money, when in reality, no, it's the other way around. You need money in a lot of cases to be able to acquire that something else. No, there are some people, like I would say Warren Buffett, he's passionate about making money. That's what he wants to do, But by and large, I think people get to this place in their mind where I need to make X amount of dollars. Well, what do you need to make X amount of dollars for? What are you trying to achieve? Is that something that you found working on the personal or business side of, trying to set people up financially? Were they always just trying to reach like these arbitrary numbers for seemingly no reason, or did you find that people actually had a plan of what they're going to do with that money that they wanted to reach? Say by 60, I want to be able to retire with $5 million in my bank account.
Yeah, so a lot of people, they come knowing that they want to start doing the right things.
Right.
And they've gotten to a place where they can save a little bit of money and they want to know how best to go about it. Sometimes they have in their mind what they want to accomplish.
Right.
Other times part of the role is to help them understand what they're trying to get to. So, I worked in the personal finance world, and I still do. But what I learned was that I really had a passion for small business. So essentially, when I work with clients on a wealth management standpoint, it's more of a personal CFO side.
Right.
It's not as well understood, so I don't necessarily call it that, but that's essentially what it is. So with a business owner, the reason why I launched what I did was because I realized that my financial plans that I was building for a business owner had a built-in failure rate of like 70% or higher. Didn't matter how good my plan was. Because if their top line didn't come through, if they didn't know how to achieve a good marketing strategy, or they didn't know how to manage cash flow, if they didn't have a plan in place, if their partner passed away and the estate required a liquidation of some sort,
Right.
if they didn't have these things in place, my plan meant nothing.
Right.
So I was like, duh, I need to be partnered with a business consultant that understands these things, that can help me achieve maximum success for my clients. That's what I wanted. So I went and I looked, I met with, I discussed, I engaged. I couldn't find one that really wasn't so hyper-focused in one area.
Right.
They were great product sales, they were great at SEO, they were great at at print media. They had this awesome thing they did with newsletters. You know what I'm saying? Or they were specifically on the margins. So there wasn't a macro business consultant that understood how to bring together a team for macro success. And as I learned that, I said, well, okay, I need to at least have the skill set to be able to provide this.
Right.
Because if I'm going to work with a business owner as a wealth management person, if I didn't have these skills, and this was truly the business owner's source of their wealth, what good am I as a financial advisor, wealth management person, if I don't understand how to read their financials, their balance sheet, their P&L, and help them make proactive decisions with clarity? If they can't forecast their future, what good is my financial plan?
Right.
If you work for Lockheed Martin and you're an employee, you know what your salary is. You know what you can expect from a certain raised cost of living. You know how much you're putting in your 401k. You know how much you can save. It's very clear.
Right.
Small business owners, boom, it's vision.
Right.
It's vision. You can't monetize vision until you can actually monetize vision. Like it only happens if you put it into
Right.
motion.
Yeah, that's something I'm going through right now with some of my advisors, working on the short-term like strategy to implement, to monetize, and work that into some longer-term plans, and then work both of those into a longer-term vision. And I think, to what you're saying, a lot of small business owners just get so caught up in the vision where they're working on a lot of the intangibles in business that aren't really driving revenue, driving, money into the business to help it grow. And then, 5-10 years down the line, realize I'm not much further than where I was 5-10 years ago.
It happens a lot where they basically built themselves a job.
Right. What do you think are some ways to avoid that you found that work for small business owners?
Well, so the first thing is, and this is why I chose to focus on the financials, is because I realized that everything starts there. I mentioned Auxilium Associates, and so we're a group of fractional executives. So you got me, the fractional CFO, you got fractional operations, fractional, sales and marketing, and fractional team and talent.
Right.
So what a small business owner typically doesn't have is a leadership team that has a lot of experience. Or if they hire one person, that one person doesn't do sales and marketing or operations. And so as a group, we come together to support in that way. So the first thing is to evaluate where your weak spots are. And even within Auxilium, we focus on the financials first.
Right.
So first thing is get a handle on understanding your cash flow. We implement a process called Profit First. And it's just a cash flow methodology that allows the business owner control and gives them an understanding of how to manage those expenses so they don't creep up. Before I started looking at Profit First, my expenses were always running in to my top line, and as a new client came on, it would go up, and if I didn't, something came up where that was just a project, it would come back down. So it became this tug of war between the expenses and the top line. Well, if you don't have a system for that, if you don't have a system to set money aside for taxes, for owner pay, and for things that might be a contractor, what happens is that cash flow becomes a big problem.
Right.
And especially when a technician who's so good at doing what they do, you can't stop working to sit there and fish through all the expenses and call up this and call up that and figure out, is this working the way it should, is it not? When was the last time I went to that event? When was the last time I read that newsletter? There's a million ways that expenses just waste money.
Right. Even in our last episode that we did, how much I think small business owners in particular will put into something like marketing and have no real plan, just like their financials.
Yeah.
And then, a year, 2, 5 years down the road, realize, wow, I spent tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing with next to no return on investment. Is that something that you're able to help out with as well, or would you refer to another one of your Auxilium Associates for that?
Great question. Well, first thing you want to do is figure out what's your expenses, what they're supposed to be doing. What's the role? If you're paying for an admin to answer phones, well, they're not a revenue generator. That's okay, right? But you've got to literally designate a role for that expense.
Right.
And then occasionally you need to review it. Like, hey, is there an improvement here that could be done? Well, let's say, for instance, you're paying for some sort of a CRM service, right? Maybe it was 5-10 years ago before the evolution of the different companies popped up. Every now and then you should review, is there a workflow tool that's going to improve the productivity and process of my company? And then you have to weigh it out with, the answer is yes, but then the choice is, well, what goes into implementing this new thing? Well, that's a different story. Sometimes implementation has a cost to it.
Right.
Whether it's just the tool or whether it's time, energy, and then training. And then I was talking with a business the other day, and we were saying that their financial tool, it doesn't allow my tools to integrate with it.
Right.
So essentially what happens is I have to then be given spreadsheets, upload them into my system in order to provide them visibility on their profitability, break-evens, and where the things they can do to improve all of their metrics, right?
Right.
Well, I'm like, well, hey, I just found a tool specific to the industry that would give my tools the ability to take their financials and translate them into beautiful visuals. Most business owners, if they could just see their financials in a visual way that wasn't just spreadsheet line items,
Right.
could make so much, their decision making is so much better. Anyway, so this guy was like, he looked at me, he was like, Corbin, he's like, that's great, you're right, but I just see $10,000. Because it's not even the price of the software, it's that I have to literally integrate this with, like 20 different users, they're all in different states, like it would just be such a problem that I'm gonna have to really, it's not worth it. Like, so then I had the homework to go figure out how do I explain the value of being able to see your financials. Well,
Right.
if that's an intangible, and what is tangible is that this works, it's not broken. Well, so anyway, sometimes when you evaluate an expense, sometimes you can get a yes, there can be an improvement, but no, it doesn't make sense at this time.
Right.
So then I would then put together when does that make sense? At what point? What are the projects on the table? So you have to go through
Just
your
kind of like
expenses.
projections, essentially.
Yeah, you have to go through and identify what role each dollar is supposed to be playing for you, and decide if it's worth it. And a lot of times, once you do that right off the bat, you can cut out a bunch of expenses that were pretty much just really non-necessary. You identify the ones that are producing income, and you can then segment them from the question mark of, are they producing income,
Right.
i.e. marketing. So if you're putting money into digital marketing, and you say, well, here's what you spent, here's what, remember that our last guest was talking about conversions.
Right.
What are these conversions bringing you? And if we turn this off right now, what kind of a drop in revenue would you see? Right? And if we upped it, if we doubled it, what kind of income could we expect? And you begin to play around with the ROI. Now, if you're putting in $1 and you're getting back $1.15, something's not right with your marketing. Right? You should be able to decide what your expectations are. So each piece has to, once it's identified, once expense has a role to play, you evaluate whether or not it's actually achieving their role, just like you would an employee.
Okay. Now, going back a little bit, so you made the jump from personal finance to small business finance. What was that transition like? You just, I don't want to say fed up with personal finance?
No. I'm still very active. I love my group of clients. I'm very retirement oriented.
Right.
So it's really, to me, it's the same coin. It's just heads or tails.
Right.
Like, so a business owner, client that says, I want to retire, well, most of the time it involves questions around their business.
Right.
Well, again, if I don't have the ability or the skill set, so to me it's just the same coin, just the other side of it.
Because as much as you want to separate business and personal, they often play hand in hand.
It's the same thing. So I found myself realizing that business owners want they value help. They understand that they're willing to pay for good advice. Whereas it's oftentimes it's like someone working for like in marketing, the things that go into making good decisions there are pretty clear. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like once you understand the dynamics, it's a matter of figuring out how to customize a series of puzzle pieces to meet their picture, but it's always the same. It's not always the same, so I'm hesitating on my language here, but the idea is that it's a much simpler puzzle to put together.
Right.
Whereas business owners, it's like, it may be some of the same issues, but every business is so different because you have not just the couple you're working with or the individual you're working with,
Right.
but you have the company culture, you've got the product itself, you got the marketing, like there's so many other things, so many other dials that like when I come in as the macro and sit at the seat of helping them understand their financials, well then I'm able to bring in the individual micro guys or girls that have the business to help them, whether it's marketing, whether it's whatever it is.
Right.
I'm able to organize that so I don't have to manage every piece. As a matter of fact, I can't. But what I was missing before when I went looking for the small business consultant was somebody who understood the macro picture, understood the intersection. Right? So that when I talked to the product development person, that I understood the same intersection.
Right. And brings everyone on the same page.
That was it. And you needed a macro person to sit there and understand it. And the only place that macro can sit and understand whether or not marketing is producing, whether or not Joe is producing as a salesperson, whether Joanne is creating the right kind of digital marketing, is to sit in the financial spot.
Right.
Because it's the cash flow, it's the blood flow. It's kind of like the cardiologist.
Right.
You've got to understand how blood is moving through the system in order to determine what systems are having problems.
It's the collective resource that all those individual departments of the business, they all need to, rely on that resource, money, the operations takes money, the product takes money, it's, the marketing takes money. Like you said, it's all comes back into this one pool of straighten out your finances, and the rest won't take care of itself, but it'll definitely make things easier where you're not having to worry about, how am I going to market this when I'm still seeing if I have enough to, pay my operators or, whatever, you might be struggling with in your business. I just imagine it's a whole lot easier once you get those. It's more than just financials, right? But that seems like the best place to start.
It's where you see the trends showing. It's the dashboard on your car. Right. It's the first place you see the check engine light come on. It's the first place you see how fast you're going. Right. It's the first place you can see whether or not your oil pressure is right. Without that financial dashboard, you kind of fly blind.
Now, so before you even got started in the social work, where were you at? So you were in high school or college at that time. What was going through your thought process of what am I going to do the next 5-10 years, the rest of my life? What was kind of going through your head?
So in high school it was the counseling thing, and then in college I had some experiences with just close friends that had gone through some stuff that really impacted me. So that's why counseling became my focus. But I always had this vision for really impacting kids in a way, right? I always felt like, and that's why I went into youth villages, was because I felt like that, when I worked with adults from a counseling standpoint, it was that they were always already set in their ways.
Right.
I mean, you have to go through great lengths to have an adult realize that this pain point is causing this pain and why they should stop doing it.
Right.
It's like for whatever reason, it's like a groove gets laid out, and it's really hard. They have to have something has to happen.
Right.
Whereas with a child, I got a toddler right now, and it's amazing when you go, hey, you know what? Try it this way. And they tried that way, and then you know what happens? That's the way they're going to do it now, because it worked. Right. Now, if it doesn't work, they're going to try something else. And maybe sometimes they don't always do it, but the point is eventually, all of a sudden, the next day, he's just doing it. And it's because you simply had to show them what was going on, so they understood it. Now, once they understand it, they do it differently. So you can still impact. It's also why adults have a hard time learning languages, by the way. I mean, if you don't believe me in that example, you can believe me in the languages. Like, try to learn another language when you're, over whatever age. But you can teach a child, an infant,
right?
Or a toddler and a growing, whatever it is. Like, I don't know, they can learn language so quickly.
Right.
So the same principles apply. It's like why we've talked about taking, profit-minded business and turning it into a nonprofit to support this outreach to kids, whether they're at-risk kids, having troubles in the foster care system, whatever the case is, and helping them understand that you control your own destiny in life.
Right.
Like, there's so many different pathways a child can go, and it's like sometimes they get thrown into life on a path that's very limited.
Right.
But the idea of translating what we've learned as entrepreneurs and what I learned from small business that was working with them, translating that into a program that helps these kids realize that path that they were given, they were thrown into,
isn't the only one.
Doesn't have to be the path that they choose.
Right.
Right? But if they're not given that person that says, this is why with youth villages, my goal was always to come out and be more of a mentor than I was an actual technician in that field, because as a technician you become clouded by not only the company you're working with, bureaucracy, but you're also clouded by the kid has to ride in the back seat, because if he rides in the front seat, I have to be concerned now that he's going to create some report that says I touched him. Like, how do you explain that to a foster child? Right. You know what I'm saying? That already feels weird and alienated. Right. I mean, that's just terrible. Now, at the time was before see, like it's safer to be in the back seat anyway. But like, there used to be an 8 or 9-year-old could ride in the front seat and not be like some safety violation. But anyway, the point is that it's easier to be a solution when you're not bound by. I mean, obviously. Anyway, long story here. Blah 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 blah. That was too far. That was some of the reasons why that to me didn't. I felt like I couldn't make the child feel normal. Right. So it's like I understand that when you're working with a child that's been given a lot in life that maybe it's isolated in the pathway, giving them the ability to see life through a business owner mindset, through an entrepreneurial mindset, can transform not only the world. I mean, because if they use that and they have that skill set, not every person is born with that. You and I have had this discussion, and it's one that we actually debate whether or not somebody has. It's like a hard wiring, whether or not they could be an entrepreneur or not.
Right.
I'm of the mindset that there are certain personality types that aren't a good fit. Whereas you're very optimistic. The difference in a little bit of age maybe, but I like your perspective. I want everyone to have. If they're given from an early age and they don't fall into certain grooves, the ability to see the world as an entrepreneur does. Because when you find that gap and you find that opening in a need, and you can provide a service that fills it, people will pay you for that.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a great point that you bring up. Where I'm not necessarily saying everyone is born or should be an entrepreneur or their own business owner or whatever, but I do think it's possible for anyone to do, and it's just whether or not they actually really want to do it or not. Because there's the famous term entrepreneur, and there's a lot of that out there now. Especially we're talking with Matt, who was brought up like the Instagram influencers, where everyone's seeing them make money, through social media, and then everyone wants the following, the fame, and the money that comes with that.
Not easy, is it?
And it's not, it looks so easy, but you're also only seeing the glamorous side of what people want you to see, where on the back end, part of why we're doing this podcast is to connect business owners and entrepreneurs and startup company founders together, where you're not alone,
Right.
where otherwise you might feel alone if you don't have, people to talk to about issues that you're facing as a business owner. That, chances are, people come to you as the business owners with all your problems, especially if you have a family outside of business, and you don't want to go with your business problems, and then their personal problems add up on your business problems, and then where does that leave you as the business owner to go?
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to get caught up in how great it is to like set your own schedule and live the life that you want to live. But no matter how you live life, if you're doing something meaningful, it's not going to be easy. And I get a lot of, strange reactions to that when, by and large, I'm doing what I want to do every day, but, still not happy every day,
Right.
all the time, Again, I love doing what I do, but it doesn't mean it's all roses and butterflies,
Right.
Yeah.
The problem goes into it's when it works out really well.
Right.
But what you and I have both found, and what you're describing, is it's not that easy. Which is why when you go to school and when you decide that you're not going to go back to college and get an MBA.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To then go launch your business, like the be a good idea.
Right.
But that's not typically the entrepreneurial mindset.
Right.
So what we do is we read a few great books and then we strike out. And the reality is that having a curriculum that if we, as we develop the profit-minded business and we put it into practice of the nonprofit, we create and we align with those who have the same mindset and the same passion for helping, change kids that have these struggles. We want to put together a curriculum that teaches them things that you're not going to just read in the book.
Right.
Bring in entrepreneurs who understand that, you can't just start out and just power through, certain things. You have to understand how to scale a business.
Right.
You know, like you can't just because it's a good idea, you can't just throw money at things.
Right.
I mean, totally how I would be. You know, if I didn't have some education at this point, that's a terrible way to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we lost over time is just like apprenticeships and, you know, learning hands-on from someone who's been there, done that. And that's kind of how I've tried to structure my life and my business, where I'm out looking for people that have been successful or have even failed in different, you know, aspects of what they've done. But it's from first-hand experience, whereas sometimes you like read these books or you're in school learning this curriculum and learning it from a professor who's probably been in the university system their entire career and don't really have first world experience. It's like, I don't know if this is the right advice. Or I was talking to Matt, our last guest, when sometimes advice, for me at least, it matters who I'm given the advice from. It could be the exact same advice from two different people, but you know,
it's the same intersection.
Yeah,
it's a different perspective.
Right, and it's interesting how that can happen. And you know, it's just, for me, it's all about experience. You know, and
well, you're so right, and that's, I mean, we lightly talked about it, but you saying that out loud reminds me how important that is to build into any program that we put in place.
Right.
Is that it's not just about teaching kids, you know, how to run a lemonade stand at a certain age, you know, then how to create, you know, a business opportunity at, you know, another level and another level and another level. It's aligning these children with mentors.
Right.
Right? I mean, creating a network of mentors, of folks that not just work for the small business administration and want to counsel adults and launch a business, but actually want to be a part of a mentor program for youth in a way that, you know, it doesn't necessarily, hey, well, today we're not going to talk about cash flow. Today we're just going to be us.
Right.
You know?
And that's, you know, another thing we're talking about, like the relationship between personal life and business life. My favorite mentors are ones that also help me on the personal side, not just business side, because, you know, there are a lot of problems that, you know, again, I'm not going to go to my business partners or, you know, luckily I do live in an open household where I can go talk to my parents, you know, pretty much about anything. But at the same time, they're still my parents, you know. I don't want to go and, you know, then put a burden on them, you know, just because I'm feeling bad, you know. Not that they're going to feel bad because I feel bad, but I like to think so anyway. But yeah, it's nice to also have like the personal mentors, the personal advisors that, as much as they want to help you and your business grow and succeed, that starts with you as an individual, I think. And I think that's also a common, you know, theme inside the university systems is, as much as you're getting information from these professors and teachers and even other students, it's all geared like they're trying to go have this big profound effect and change the world, which there's nothing wrong with, but they're skipping over the first step, which is like figuring out, what do you want to do? Like, how do you want to make your life better? How do you want to you know, affect your life positively before you start expanding it out and, you know, to other people, including other people as part of that success or happiness. Or
the biggest problem with small business owners is really it's not always just cash flow. It's in the head.
Right.
It starts up here. It's what we're telling ourselves.
Right.
It's what we think about a certain thing that has to be a certain way. It's how rigid we are internally. It's what our habits are. It's, you know, the way we view, whether it's, you know, optimistic or negative. I mean, like, it's all up here at first.
Your mindset, right?
Yeah, I mean, you get your mindset right, then so many other things in your life will fall in place, like how you view relationships, how you view money, how you were taught about money.
Right.
Like, holy crap, if you can unpack how your parents ran their financial life, you're going to figure out why you run yours.
Right.
You know, and hopefully you do that sooner than later, because reminder, you only have one exponential curve. You know, like, you only have a little bit of time in this world to figure that out, and if you figure it out late, it's just going to limit you. And here it is, it's all about options.
Right.
It's not about, you know, how happy you are. That you can always find happiness with what you've got with the right mindset.
Right.
But it's about having options.
Right.
And it's about having the ability to impact. Now, you can always impact by being a part of a larger thing. Right. Sometimes that larger thing requires somebody that has the means to launch the bigger thing. That's why we talk about becoming, in the nonprofit sector, we could align with people who are all minded the same way and begin to allow folks who have the means but aren't going to launch something like the Profit Minds or be a part of a high school that's an alternative, or they're not going to do it themselves because of a lot of reasons, good reasons, but they have the means and they want to contribute.
Right.
And it's like we want to collaborate with the people, not just in Atlanta, but all over the nation, in a way that helps, really present an opportunity for, kids, youth, because if you could help them out, then we're transforming the world.
Right.
And so by collaborating, it takes us out of, like you said before, you have all these people who want to put their mind power in their financial capabilities, or even their talents or their experience, become mentors. And it allows everyone to contribute at the place where they're at in life.
Right.
Wherever they're at when their issues occur. I mean, forget I even talked about that in this context. But like, we could all have an impact now.
Right.
It's not just about having money to invest in small businesses and invest in youth and helping them launch. Like, that's all part of it. But now we can collaborate on a much larger scale to have a larger impact. And not even just kids, evolve it even from that, to partner with the Small Business Administration to provide support in ways that make sense. We even talked about lemonade stands, for young kids,
right,
and about how, as a Country Time lemonade, that when, I forget what city it was, do you remember?
I think it was all over the nation that Country Time lemonade was coming in.
Well, so we learned that, lemonade stands, because there's no business license, because it's not meant for that.
Right.
There's no regulatory on making sure that the lemonade was made in sanitary conditions, and all of a sudden it became a thing that like you couldn't have a lemonade stand.
Right, without a permit.
Without a permit. And it was like, really? And then Country Time Lemonade came in and said, this is wrong, this is a part of a rite of passage.
Right.
If you talk to kids about, adults who started off as who they are, I mean, even you, hearing your story about how your influence at the beginning was that you played a part in business.
Right.
To where it's like that experience is what shapes you.
And I did those lemonade stands, I did snow cone stands.
Yes.
I did all sorts of different things that just gave me business exposure, talking to people, interacting with people. Again, on the financial side, just getting used to transactions of providing value in exchange for a good or a service. I mean, that's essentially what business boils down to, just providing value to others where it's more convenient for them to give you money or to give you, something that you're looking for, and to return something that's just as valuable, if not more, so to them.
And we don't no longer accept goats and and furs.
I mean, speak for yourself. If anyone has goats, I love goat chocolate milk. So.
Oh yeah, the will work for goats.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really is so critical to have some of those early business experiences, and so we just feel like that if we can create a program that provides that, it's, the lemonade stand concepts. There's the snow cone, and I love that. The car wash idea, like. It's about, and then having them recognize how to use those resources to do something else with.
Right.
And teaching these principles of cash flow, and that, wow, okay, you can't just take all this money and then go do something with it and you got nothing to run the business on. Like, what are we going to use to buy our snow cone mix?
Right.
Did you get a loan from someone to buy the lemonade?
So, I actually, for like the snow cone example, I actually went through something similar where my mom would front all the money for like the snow cone, like ice, and I had bought the machine, and she had bought like all the syrup
and everything. That was from like a savings from like your
just like savings piggy bank, and I was also working part-time up at like my grandparents' like farm up in Ohio selling corn. So I would make like $3 an hour cash, under the table there, and then apply that to like just go buy different like toys, video games, but also bought a snow cone machine.
Nice.
And then my mom, bought all like the other like supplies, like the syrups and the ice and everything. And then after the day was up, had to pay her back for the ice, pay her back for the syrup, and then I was actually setting up in from my grandfather's yard, and he wouldn't do it all the time, but he would say, all right, it's $10, you know, to use the land or whatever, or rent for the land, you know, just to get me accustomed to those sort of things. It's like, I always saw the money back, you know, just because they were taking care of me, you know, as a young kid. But I mean, it got me like learning.
You understood that as soon as you make $1,
it doesn't mean you get to keep that dollar. There's
what
expenses.
Is your actual profit margin?
Right.
And you had to actually understand. I mean, you know, the word profit margin probably didn't come up. But the idea is that at least you started to understand the principles. Like, forget the language. It's just the idea that, like, okay, we need to set aside this, and this, and have $1 what you take home 50 cents.
Right. Yeah, and that's. I think a lot of people get caught up in the language, and again, I'm all about experience. Like all the labels, identity, acronyms aside, at the end of the day, are you providing value to someone? Are you making enough to cover your costs, and then hopefully above and beyond that, some that you can save away, reinvest back into the business, put into marketing, and continue to grow your business if that's what you're looking to do. But I see that's a problem, especially with a lot of kids my age, that they'll start up their own brands, t-shirt companies, whatever the company may be, and then not reinvest it back into the business, and then wonder why their business doesn't grow when they go buy a new watch, or there's a lot more to it than just that one upfront transaction. Where just because you can sell something doesn't mean you have a business. It just means you can sell something.
Yeah, I mean, a business is tough, and it always starts with the financials, like knowing what you have to charge.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, for me, it's still a trial and error finding a lot of it out, but once you start going through the process, okay, I pay someone this much to do this part of the job, all right, and then, now I gotta pay someone to edit it, okay, that's another expense, all right, we also want to see some profit on that, oh wait, no, we also have to buy music for this video, and then just start piecing what everything costs, to make that job happen, and then you can say, okay, well, we need to charge X amount, and then if we just want to get a job and, make that customer happy, sometimes we might just do it at a break even, because for me, if we can't afford advertising, right, then the best way to show someone what you can do is, again, through experience, letting them see firsthand, what you can do, what you can provide. And that's how we've gotten a lot of our work.
Out of the beginning comes like grassroots,
where
you're just trying to leverage relationships.
Just making the most out of everything you have, whether it's the relationships or the money that you do have, the equipment you have. Just that's probably my number one takeaway from doing what I've been doing for the last 2-3 years. Just make the most out of what you have. It might not be the most glamorous solution, but hey, at least it's a start, and you can build from the start.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's great. I love what we're doing, and like we were just talking about how great it is that you came with the idea of the podcast, and that your team is producing it. It's really been an awesome experience, and I think that what we have is something that really does help the small business community. And I always say that I'm a small business advocate, and I know we are a small business advocate.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's helped me, already, just talking to the people that, we probably wouldn't have talked to in depth, otherwise, and getting some of their insights and perspectives on the way they run their lives, their business. I mean, that's invaluable at the end of the day. You can't really put a price on that.
Right.
So
you certainly can't. Well, I think we should probably wrap it up. And thank you for turning the interview around. And
I enjoyed learning a little bit more about your background, how you got into this, and hopefully the audience will as well. And I know we've done kind of a little bit of a dive into my past and how I got started, and we've talked a little bit about Killingsworth, so I thought this would be a great opportunity to give everyone a look into Corbin.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Hope everyone got something out of it. Reaching out to Jacob, for the video production if they have ideas around that, but just remind folks that, we were just talking about one of your, just remind folks that ideal client at this time, while you do corporate videos, do client events, but because of your specialty with drones and everything else, it's working with construction.
Yeah, so right now, construction companies, real estate brokerages, and home insurance agents, and they're not really our customer directly, but they're great for us because they're for us to homeowners who are our customers offering a home inventory service. So
Those are the insurance side, home inventory.
Yeah, so essentially it's like Google Street View. We just
essentially it's like Google Street View.
The homeowner's home inventory, just using 360-degree photography inventory captures everything in the room. Now they have proof of ownership for fire, flood, or theft.
What kind of discount do they see when they have that video?
So it depends on the actual home insurance agent, but the biggest value across the board is if you do have a case of fire, flood, or theft, or any sort of natural disaster that would see your items destroyed or lost, you actually get your maximum payout. As opposed to you have a home insurance policy for, let's say, $300,000 and covers your home and everything in the home. Well, that's up to $300,000. If you don't have the documentation of everything in your home, they may pay you 40, 50, 60% of that maximum payout. So by having that documentation, you assure getting as close to 100% of that payout.
So it'd be great for someone who has maybe a higher value item, recognizes that they lost it all, not just losing couch. They lost it all, losing art or couch. They're losing, valuable entertainment system. Like they're losing out on things that don't come standard to anybody.
Right.
Out on things that
Yeah,
don't come
just
standard.
typically more established homeowners that have collections of any kind. But we've had people that, just have special furniture, their electronics junkies,
their electronics.
There's a big difference between like a Panasonic TV and then the Black Friday TV that you go get at Walmart, and being able to show that, yeah, you actually had a $1,000 TV versus a $200 TV. That all adds up, especially if you have a TV in every bedroom, whatever the case may be.
And of course, you do a lot more than that.
Right, yeah, that's just, one of our verticals where we think we can help a lot of people make a real tangible difference in their lives. I mean, look at the California wildfires, and how many people just lost everything, had no documentation, and then weren't receiving anything just because they didn't have any way to show, oh yeah, I had 2 TVs, I had a few printers, I had all this furniture, it's all burnt to the ground. And so we just, as much as I would like to be able to do it for free, we think spending a couple $100s to document your inventory as opposed to, losing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars when something does happen. It's just not worth the trade-off.
Yeah, sure.
Just not.
Well, thank you guys again for joining us, and thank you, Jacob. Thank you guys again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Corbin.
And y'all have a great week. We'll see you next
Yeah,
time.
thank you.
And y'all have a great week. And we'll see you next time.